Hello everybody and welcome back to DTDcember, a series in which I'll be counting down my top 12 GTA villains of all time. If you want more info on this whole thing, feel free to check out my first video in this series where I explain the rules of my list. Or if you haven't seen my previous DTDcember videos and want to avoid spoilers, check out this playlist to watch every prior entry up to this point. Today, I'll be talking about my number 10 entry into this list, Billy Gray from Grand Theft Auto 4, The Lost and Damned. Billy is a pretty interesting character to me. When we're first introduced to him, we see our protagonist, Johnny, symbolically hand the leadership of the Lost MC back to the true president as he's released from jail. However, after they return to the clubhouse, we see the president and vice president's ideologies clash as they argue about retrieving Billy's bike from the Angels of Death, a rival motorcycle club. After tensions rise as Johnny argues that the club needs to focus on business and its survival while Billy argues back that the president's bike is more important, Johnny reluctantly agrees to get his bike back, after which Billy calms things down and reminds our protagonist of the two's brotherhood in a rather manipulative way. After the bike is recovered, our following missions with Billy revolve around starting a war with the Angels of Death in order to steal some heroin off of them, and our president shows how low he's willing to go politically as he uses the death of our lost brother Jason as an excuse to attack them in the first place. Once again, Johnny and Billy's ideologies clash as our protagonist knows how unwise it would be to wage a war with the Angels of Death. But Billy reminds us that he's the president, so it's his call. With Johnny questioning each of Billy's decisions, as well as failing to sell the heroin due to a sting operation, the president begins to doubt his loyalty, and so he attempts to double-cross Johnny by offering him up to the Triads, whom the heroin originally belonged to, in exchange for peace. Of course, our protagonist manages to fight his way out of the situation, but during the chaos, Billy gets arrested again and is sent to prison, forcing Johnny to take over as acting president of the Lost once more. Some of Billy's loyalists see this as a power play from Johnny, and opt to revolt against his leadership and spark a brief civil war which ultimately leaves the gang weaker than ever. While Billy may be absent for the majority of the rest of the game, his influence is still felt as he acts against Johnny from behind the scenes, whether it's through his followers breaking off and fighting against our protagonist as I just mentioned, by convincing Ray Bacino that we're not to be trusted, or by snitching on Johnny to get himself into witness protection. His actions on the inside ultimately lead to the downfall of the Lost MC, and while he may get his comeuppance in the final mission of the game, it's hard to say that he didn't get the last laugh in the end, especially when you consider the turn Johnny's life takes following the events of this story. Despite not being the most memorable antagonist in this series, Billy Gray is a remarkable character for how captivating of a villain he really is. He may not be very complex, but he's a character you're clearly meant to try to like, since he's supposed to have our protagonist's best interest at heart, who turns out to be a manipulative piece of shit who's willing to backstab his so-called brothers after they've shown him how much they would have sacrificed for him. He's a good character who serves his purpose well, and if the story were any longer, I think an argument that he's on par with a similar character, Red Dead Redemption's Dutch Vanderland, wouldn't be too far-fetched. However, much like how my previous two entries, Massimo Torrini and Sonny Forelli, suffered heavily from a lack of time on screen, Billy Gray suffers from a lack of time to tell his story due to how short The Lost and Damned is. For those reasons, I can only put him as high as the number 10 spot on this list of the greatest GTA villains of all time. But what do you think? Do you agree with this placement? Or do you believe Billy deserves a higher spot, or maybe that he should be below Sonny or Torrini? Tell me down below, and while you're there, if you're enjoying this series so far, feel free to leave a like on this video, and subscribe if you haven't done so already so that you'll be notified this Monday when I return with the number 9 entry for this list. But until then, have a blessed couple of days, and I'll see you all then. This is your boy DTDcember, and I'm signing off.